Good. All right, good morning, everyone. Those grabbing your coffee, if you would come and join us in the theater this morning, that would be wonderful. I just want to say good morning to our in-person audience and hello on Zoom and on Facebook. I'll get over to that computer in a second and facilitate that chat. We're happy to have you both in person and virtually with us for our next coffee chat. So we've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks as our exhibitions were switching over. Today's guest was originally scheduled to join us during our previous exhibition, which was the Crooked Tree Art Center Guild Member Salon Show. Sharon Wade is our guest today, and she is a Guild Member artist, and we're going to hear about her own personal story and connection with art in our presentation today. Sharon, I came to know Sharon's work just about a year and a half almost ago in her participation in our holiday market. She is a pastelist who creates very ambient and beautiful landscapes. I was so taken with the way that she created a space that I recognized and me personally, not only from how I move through space, but it really does have the power to transcend beyond that capture of something that we know and recognize as a natural environment, but something that we can recognize personally within ourselves, and that connection to the land and the environment and space in almost a spiritual sense. So I hope that if you're not familiar with Sharon's work, that this will inspire you to check it out and get to see things a little bit more. She's going to share a number of images in her presentation today, and she has a number of in-person works for us to check out as well. And I have to say that we do keep her work on display in the sales gallery regularly as well, so you can check that out too. Before we begin, I want to thank a few folks. I want to go ahead and thank Crooked Tree Art Center members. Membership is what allows us to continue to do programs like this. So thank you to our members, and if you're not yet a member, you can see us at the front desk and we can tell you more about that. I also want to thank Roast and Toast. They are our sponsors for this series. So if you haven't grabbed your coffee or pastry, please do so. One of the perks for joining us in person, so maybe next time you can join us in person over there on the computer. So I want to thank those folks. And then, as I mentioned, this program was originally scheduled to complement that Guild Member exhibition. We have now just recently opened the 2023 Youth Art Show, which showcases young artists from throughout the Sharon ISD. We have over 1,000 works of art from artists grades K to 12. So it's a really many of our favorite show of the year. It's just so inspirational and exciting. And as a thematic tie-in, I did just want to acknowledge Sharon's role as an art educator and having key period of her life teaching young artists. So it's exciting to me to think about that continuity between the engagement as a practicing artist as well as an art educator. So with that, I'm going to make my way over there to that computer, and I would like to ask you to join me and welcome Sharon.
Thank you. Hi, you can hear me okay? Well, I thought I would just start with telling you, I think I'll just have a presentation telling you my story and how I got where I am right now. It has a lot to do with people and community in my life, and that's just been a theme of how people have interacted with me. And I've been able to just really see the power of art and what art can do in lives. And so I just thought I would start and just tell you my story. I do love to do landscapes, and here in Northern Michigan, I think we live in the most beautiful area. And I think my favorite thing is to go onto the lake, especially this is my husband Ken, and his mother has a place on Lake Michigan, and I just go and sit on the beach, and I just love, so that's really an inspiration for me and my landscapes. And this was just a fun one at the City Beach Lighthouse. This couple was just there, and I just thought, and then we find the puddles is the name of this piece. And so I just thought that was fun. But I wanted to start just telling you my story. This is our family. And I wasn't doing art. I struggled through college. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I spent 3.5 years at university, actually 2 universities and a couple more after that, and just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I just kind of grew up with believing that art wasn't a career or wasn't really something that you could sustain yourself. And so I just struggled. I remembered in high school, sitting in the counselor's office, just going through book after book after book of careers and just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I went to school without really a plan. And just never did really finish. And Ken and I met, and he was just all for me figuring my life out and what I wanted to do. But I kind of just gave up on that. And we ended up with traveling a lot, living in different places in the US, and our wonderful family here. That's a whole nother story. You can ask me another time, but we've been really blessed with our family. And Ken, I'll just skip a lot of years, but we were probably in our mid-30s with our kids and living in Seattle. And he started going on trips with our church down to Haiti. And he's a biomedical engineer. And so he started going on trips down there to help in hospitals that were just falling apart. And he would call me from down in Haiti and he'd say, I think we could be doing this. And I would say, I'm so glad you're doing this, and have fun, and I'll stay home with the kids. I didn't mean that in a mean way. I was really glad for him, but I was never going to do that. And he'd go down the next year with our group from church, and he'd call home and he'd say, I think we can do this. And I'm thinking, I'm glad you're doing this. You know, I'm sacrificing at home. I'm giving up our vacations, but I'm really glad you could do this. And then he went to East Africa for a couple of years. And he would just kind of say, no pressure or anything, but just say, I think we could do this. Because he just has a gift of in hospitals and trying to figure out how to rebuild and that kind of thing. And so one time our kids, I remember our oldest son, Colin, was 7. And I just said, you know, I really just need to go see what he does. And we went over to Eritrea, East Africa. And I was sitting there in a little cafe with my little drink and my little umbrella in it. And I was thinking, looking around going, I really think we could do this. And that was just kind of it. So we looked around for places for him to work, and we ended up here. This is India on the border of Nepal, and it's Duncan Hospital. And I kind of call it a love-hate relationship with this place, but there was a lot of love, to be honest. And it was hard, it was good, but this is kind of where my art journey began. If you can imagine, we lived in a flat in the hospital. You got to picture this. You got to picture not a Michigan summer where you're boiling and hot. This is really a hot time all the time. Even the night times are hot. And so you have to picture the heat, and you have to picture no electricity most of the time, and definitely no air conditioning. And we actually had no paper, and that's another long story. You think about what you need paper for, that I could tell you about. But I found myself in this place with 3 little kids and homeschooling. And Ken had scrounged. We didn't have any furniture up in our flat, and he had scrounged in the market. Somebody had tore apart an old car, and so car seats. So we had 2 bench seats that were facing each other that were our sofa in our home. And so I was sitting on our sofa, and probably with a fan and probably with a big glass of water, and thinking, okay, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing here. I mean, I had to create all of our own food from scratch. I homeschooled our kids and all this stuff I loved, but I just felt like, what was my purpose? And it was basically just getting through the day, getting up at 5 in the morning, trying to filter all our water, trying to prepare food before the heat came, just trying to get through homeschooling. We had a swamp cooler, which is one of those big things with a bale of hay in it. And it was wet, and it would force air through it. And so every time we were doing our studies, the kids, it would swing back and forth, and we'd clamp down on our paper, and then we'd keep going, then it'd swing the other way, and we'd clamp down on our paper. And that was kind of our life. And so I'm sitting on this sofa, and I'd say, okay, Lord, I don't know what my purpose is in life here. And Joanne from Ireland, she was a teacher at the hospital. We had a little Indian school up in our hospital. She came walking up the steps to our flat and kicked off her shoes and came in, and she sat down, she said, would you teach art at our school? And I'm like, I am not a teacher. I don't know I wouldn't know what to do. And she looked at me and she said, okay, Sharon, have you had art in kindergarten? And I said, sure. And, you know, in elementary school, if you had art, did you do crafts? Did you do crafts with your family? Did you do crafts in middle school? She said, you have way more experience than these kids have ever had. And I'm looking at her going like, what can I say to that? And so I walked over to the school, and it's, this was my first introduction into class, and it's crowded, yeah, and they don't have anything, and it's hot, second floor, no heat, no air conditioning. And I'm looking and going, you know, this is one of those aha moment times in life when you have to either go forward or you stay. And I'm thinking, here I was just praying about what I should do, and here's this opportunity that just landed in my lap. So we started our program there, and with barely any supplies or no supplies. We had a pad of computer paper that we had brought, and that was the only supplies that I had. And they did have pencils. So we started, and I just happened to have brought with me this wonderful little book, drawing textbook, by Bruce McIntyre. I don't even think it's in print anymore. And it's this little book that shows you how to do little foreshortening drawings by making foreshortened rectangles and squares and circles. And so we took our computer paper over to school. We folded it into 9 little squares so that we had enough paper to last us a long time. And they did little drawings every day in their little square, and they loved it. It was just like the first time that they had been able to do anything like that. And so that was my introduction to what it felt like to teach art, and what it felt like to have kids' lives opened up because of a little bit of creativity. And so then we tried to do things like that they could, you know, I wanted to be really sustainable. If we weren't there, what could they do? And so I got some Maida or flour and water and made paste. And we had plastic bags. Of course, there's plastic bags all over the bazaar. There's plastic bags. So we cut little corners in them like you would cake decorating. You know, we put our Maida in there, and we had muslin material. And so we decorated them and made little batik drawings with our one set of watercolor paints that we had. And it was just amazing. But the problem with that one is I had a lot of lessons to learn along the way. Was the hospital administration came to me about 2 weeks later. Things took a long time to kind of go through the circle. And they said, Mrs. Wade, and they said, why are you wasting food? And I looked at him and I said, what? I don't know. And he said, to use flour for art and not for food. You know, we can't waste food like that. So that, you know, I had a lot to learn, but I decided these kids, why not open their lives a little bit? And so we wrote home and asked people if they could send supplies. And the biggest joy was, it was right before Christmas, and we asked people to send us the cover of their Christmas cards. And I got packages of, you know, envelopes and envelopes of Christmas card covers. And those things went such a long way in all kinds of art projects. We got a sets of scissors. We got some glue. We actually had someone in England who was a book editor for children, and she sent over books, and we started a library. And Joanne and I, the kids are so creative as far as dance and song. And so we started a drama group and set decorations. And it was just an amazing, I guess I should say more pictures here. I'm sorry, this was scrapbooking days. If anybody done scrapbooking days, these are the only pictures I have, but these are some of the students. And we sat out on the dirt in front of the school, and we worked on these projects. And part of the reason was because the second floor, and if you can imagine, no air conditioning, and we had a ceiling fan, but it kind of went like this. So it was like no good. So I had to wear a bandana on my head because every time I'd help them with a picture, I'd drip sweat on their pieces. It was just kind of one of those things. But this was our classroom, and this was the most amazing thing. And this is what started in my heart working about what art can do for people and how it could open their lives. Let's see what my next picture is. I think I can go this way. Okay, well, then after we were there for about 9 years, we switched to another place in India, but then Ken actually got really sick. He traveled all over India and ended up being pretty sick. And we had to make a decision to go home or we found a place in Thailand, and Thailand has amazing medical system there. And so we moved to Thailand, and I was pretty upset by this move because I just felt I had a real purpose in India. And our kids we went to India when they were 3, 6, and 9, and our son graduated in India. And then our girls were in 7th grade and 10th grade, and we went to Thailand. And there's this beautiful school, Grace International School, that welcomed our girls into it. But I had to start a language program, and I am not good at language, I admit it. And I was very discouraged. And so our daughters went to school, and my oldest daughter came home and she said, Mom, the art teacher said she needs help. Would you come and help in the classroom? And that started the most amazing time for me. I went that next day and I never left. And so here I was in this totally different school with totally different kids from all over the world, but in a totally different environment. We had all the supplies we needed. It was an amazing experience. And I sat and helped this other teacher, Linda, who was my mentor. She was a gift. I mean, she changed my whole life, this teacher. And she let me sit through all of those projects and do all of them with her students. And one day she came to me and she said, would you sub for me? And I'm like, oh, I'm not qualified to do that. And she said, yes, you are. And she said, would you sub? Take a chance, you know? And she was gone for 3 weeks because I think her mom was sick in the States and she had to go home. And so I started subbing for her when she had to do these trips home. And it was another courage. I had to have courage because I just felt like I was so underqualified, but I started beginning drawing. And I got this wonderful book, Drawing from the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. And I just kind of used that book and started teaching drawing, and I loved it. And then she said, how about teaching advanced art? And I'm like, you're crazy. I can't do this. And so again, it was just me taking that step forward. And so I kind of learned with the students, and I started teaching advanced art. And then she's a potter, and our pottery wheels in our classroom were handmade in the bazaar, big old cement kick wheels. I don't even know how this guy made them, but I learned pottery, and she made me sit there until I could throw pots. So I was just a little bit ahead of the students, and they ended up having to leave Thailand, and she had gone to the administration behind my back and said, I think Sharon should take over this program. Well, I didn't have a degree in art education, but it was kind of a unique time then where I enrolled in a program online to get my education degree. And the administration in our school worked with me. And so I'm teaching and getting my degree at the same time. It was kind of, I don't know if you could duplicate that again, but it was an amazing experience. I'm taking a class from a teacher in Minnesota who's teaching me how to write curriculum as I'm writing curriculum as I'm teaching a class. And I'm studying it on all my breaks, and students are over at our house. And it just expanded my life. Our school's in a unique situation up North Thailand on the border near a lot of refugee camps and really displaced people groups. And our school had taken sports teams up to teach soccer up to these refugee camps. Well, the middle school teacher came up to me at the same time. We had both thought separately to ourselves, can we do this with the art department? And we decided to go for it. And we went. Our students planned the whole thing. They created pieces. They have a lot of experience with refugees because of who they are and where they've lived in their lives. And so they created pieces all about the refugee crisis there on the border. And they had an art auction, and they raised all their own money for this art ministry trip, we called it. And it was amazing. And we raised enough money to go on this trip, and I'll show you a really cool picture. These are my students teaching. They planned, we had a sports group, a music group, we had teacher group, we had translators, because most of the students could speak multiple languages, so they could speak Thai or Burmese. And they planned the whole thing. I just sort of sat back and watched, and a little guidance. And we decided to do a weekend where we would teach one skill. And so we went to this orphanage of kids who had been run out of Burma, and they had pretty horrific stories to tell. And we decided to bring art up there to them. And so I love this picture. But my students what they did was we got there on a Friday night. It was a long drive. And Saturday morning, we started teaching watercolor skills and let the students try that. And we taught more skills in the afternoon. And then my students had raised enough money to get each kid a sketchbook, a watercolor set, pencils. And it was amazing how they grabbed onto those, and they would go off and you would see them all through the rest of the day with their just drawing and drawing and drawing. We had an art therapy teacher come in to talk to us before we left. And she kind of warned us not to tell them what to draw, or because they had been through so much trauma. I mean, a couple of the kids had machete scars all over them, if you can imagine. She said, don't tell them what to draw, just let them be, let them draw, because you're not going to be there to follow up on what comes out of them. So just let them be. And it was just amazing, the beautiful pictures that they drew. And for my heart, it's just like, I think for my students and for me, this changed my life again. It was just one of those, the power of art and what art can do. So here's some of their paintings. And most of them were full of hope, which was really pretty amazing. They had a hope to go back to their homeland. They had a hope to go back to their villages. You know, they had a hope for life. And so what a blessing they were to us. And they taught us songs and they taught us dance. And it was just an amazing weekend. And this one, James, I just kept catching glimpses of him with his sketchbook. He would sit under the banana trees and he was just sketching that whole weekend. And I just could imagine I don't know what he was putting into a sketchbook, but he just was like ferociously drawing and writing. And I hope this was life-changing for him, but I just love that picture of him. And this was just me documenting that trip. This was one of my first pictures. It's a watercolor, but just you can imagine, it was my students in their shoes and their high tops amidst all these slip-ons from the kids that we went to at the refugee camp. And this is kind of a memory piece for me of that trip. So yeah, went too far. Well, let me go back to here. It was time to leave Thailand, which was really, really hard. It was very hard for me to give up that job, but we just had family needs back here that we needed to get home for. And our kids, when they're raised in another culture and coming back here, it's a little tougher to adjust. To be honest, more culture shock coming back this way, I think, because they were so little when they left. And we just really felt we needed to be home. We hadn't been around our parents in so many years. It was about 22, 23 years we had been gone. And so here I am again, back home. We found a little place in Johannesburg, Michigan. And I'm sitting there, I have known nothing. It's a different culture. This culture was one of the harder culture coming back for me, to be honest, than India or Thailand. Then I'm sitting there, now what do I do again? It's like I hadn't learned my lesson that, there's always something, God has something for me. But see, where was I going? Oh, Ken's still working he worked for a social welfare agency in Thailand, and he's still connected with them. And they came to me and asked me, well, can you just keep doing your art? Can you help us tell our stories? And so that's that door has opened for me here. And this is one of the first things I did. This is just a rough, but Vanessa's door. I had this family in Honduras contact me, and they had been working about 35 years among this village and trying to establish soapberry production for them, because soapberries can create so many different things. And they had a story that they wanted illustrated, that they were going to put the story together to tell about their village, but also to help raise money for the soapberry project. And so this is a true story about Vanessa. And I actually brought the book. I mean, it's kind of simply put together, but they noticed that in their village, a lot of people didn't have doors. And the reason for that was just they couldn't afford them. Their houses were kind of put together really quickly, and really, they didn't have money for the extra things. So they only had cloth on their doors. And what that created for a family dynamic was someone always had to remain home because you couldn't leave your house unattended. And somebody always had to be aware at night because you never felt safe. And this little girl in the village, her name isn't Vanessa, but we changed it to Vanessa. She thought, I'm going to build a door for my family. And she spent a long time collecting scraps of wood and pieces and finding nails along the road and things like that. And she hammered together a door and she painted it. And she presented it to her family. And it was just an amazing story. And that kind of got our friends interested in trying to start a fundraiser to get front doors for people, which is really an interesting thing. So I really felt a privilege to be part of this in illustrating her story. And then I got this is from a project in Thailand that rescues kids out of sex trafficking. They work with the local government and the local police, and it's a really amazing program. And they, whenever they pull a kid out of a bad situation, they hand them a teddy bear. It's just one of their little things they do. And so I got to illustrate this to just tell that story. And then this piece got made into cards and given out to the local officials as a thank you for helping and being part of this, and to honor them in their work. So that's been a really cool one. There's another project here. This is the whole village that was really dysfunctional in that just life had gone against them. And there's a group of people, project we know in Thailand, that helps them rebuild their village. And in this particular village, all the kids have been taken away. They've gone to orphanages, or basically have been taken away to orphanages because they had been told that they couldn't support their children properly. So the best thing for them was to have the children grow up somewhere else. And this group, a project group that we know, came in there and they said, let's help. What can we do to help? And the best part is that they ask, they don't tell, they just ask, what can we do to help? And the villagers said, can you help us figure out how to get our kids back? And so what that entailed was classes in family dynamics, classes in finances, classes in microloans and starting businesses, and just classes. They even had somebody come in and show them how to have fun as a village. They go on field trips together and they just do fun things. And so I really feel blessed, and that I've been able to do some art pieces to kind of document this village.
And this is Honduras.
This one now is back in Thailand. Yeah. So now I'm here. So now things are kind of coming from all over. Isn't this beautiful? That was a family picnic. And this was just one of the families, they started pig farming. And they were able to get all their children back. And when I was there, when we went to visit, and I brought the paintings to them, which was really fun. They were planning a Christmas party as a whole village. The elders of the village and everybody were planning what they're going to do for their Christmas party. They just wanted to have a party. So it's just those kind of things. When you provide fun, or you provide, just let people enjoy life, it really changes life. So I just felt really blessed with that project. And I thought, this is kind of how I'm working now. People send me photos and stories, and photos aren't always the best thing to draw from because they're very two-dimensional. So I take them and I cut them and I tape them back together and I add things, and it helps that I live there so that I can kind of feel it and see it and know the colors. And I put the photos back together, and then I copy them, and then I paint them. So that's kind of I guess I'm going a little fast, and I love pastel. I mean, pastel is kind of my medium. I think you can paint beautiful, build up the colors with pastel. So this is just sketching it out and then doing an ink wash and just start adding colors.
Sharon, do you always work that way with the ink wash first?
Pretty much I always, or watercolor wash, or or ink wash, or take rubbing alcohol, and it just beautifully moves the pastel around to stain the paper first. Helps to get the dark colors in there. But yeah, that's just a little piece. I have it down front here, but just telling the story of people in the market. There's another project we're familiar with that can help a bit with, is the night bazaar. There's a night bazaar where we lived in Thailand, and the people, if you can imagine, they're working from like 4 PM until almost all night. And so their kids are involved in that kind of life, kind of an all night kind of life. And so one of our projects has after school program for the kids where they can go. It's near the night bazaar, and they can just walk there, and there's games and there's field trips and fun things. And so now these are people in the night bazaar, and they have families and they have life, and they just needed a bit of help. So this was a fun one to do. And this one was from Kenya, a teacher there who just wanted to document where she lived, and so she could tell people at home. And we have it somewhere. We were able to make postcards of paintings and kind of tell the story, tell her story, so she could send out to people. So this was, yeah, this one was from Kenya. There's another one. And this one's Thailand. It's one of the more recent ones I've done. It's just a photo from a friend of ours, and he came to the States to just talk about what we're connected with, a social welfare agency, and just telling the stories and traveling around the States. So he wanted a painting that he made prints of and gave away to people as just thank yous for their support. So that was what this one's from. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Where do your children live now?
Oh, well,
They've had such an international experience.
they have, and I think it's a couple of them, it's really hard for them to stay put, actually. I have a daughter who's a librarian at an art academy in Chicago, and we have a son who's a policeman in a tribal police down in Southern Michigan, and we have a daughter who's an artist and a coding engineer in California. So, but they seem to, especially the girls, seem to move around a lot. Our little one, our youngest was 3 when she left the US, so she has a hard time staying put. She taught in Mozambique, and she taught back in Thailand, and now she's in Chicago as a librarian in an art academy, which she loves. She loves that. So, yeah. And then Michigan, Northern Michigan. This is kind of my free time, and what I love to do is painting pictures of Northern Michigan, especially the water and the lakes, and practicing my pastels. And so this is what I have here. Pieces that crooked tree, just the colors of this area. I think we're just really gift. It's a gift to live here. It's really a gift. And we get out as much as we can and just go take photos and explore. And this was just for fun, but I don't know if you like the chocolate house in Gaylord, but it was just a fun piece. Yeah, but that's kind of my story. Yeah.
You live here?
We live in Johannesburg, which is east of Gaylord. Yeah. I am. I teach beginning pastel and colored pencil at Gaylord Arts and at Art in the Loft in Alpena. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, kind of just community teaching, and then my full-time job is doing the projects, and then for my heart, just Northern Michigan paintings. Yeah.
You're great at clouds.
Oh, thank you. There's a lot of those around. And my favorite days are going to the lake, and not the bright, sunny, clear blue days, but the ones where the storms are coming across the water. Yeah. So, you have any other questions?
I always have questions.
Oh,
So,
sure.
I, of course, am familiar mostly with the Northern Michigan landscapes, and said as much when I introduced you, but I haven't seen as much of the figurative work and all of that. And I'm curious, when you just make work for you, what are you drawn to? Or when you're in the studio, are you mostly thinking of making something for a purpose, for the organization, or for sales? You know, how does that work for you?
if I started all over again, I think I'd be a collage artist, actually. I love found objects and putting things together, and I have a few of those pieces. But for me personally, working with pastel is my favorite. Just learning how to blend the colors. And so I do mostly Michigan landscapes for my own. The more water, the more wild the water, the wilder the clouds, better I like it. So yeah, that's kind of what I do for me. Yeah. And
I think what touched me the most when you talked about going to India and just having a little piece of paper folded and done square, and the children just had this natural enthusiasm.
Very creative, yeah. And the fun thing was we started to see, especially when we started getting supplies in, I don't know, I kind of we wanted to be sustainable, but we also wanted them to experience more. So we got supplies in, which were left at the school. So hopefully that's a continuing legacy. But we started to see them in their other classes. We started to see posters up on the wall and, you know, the sets for our dramas, and boy, dance. We learned so much about dance because dance is a big creative outlet for the kids. So all of our dramas had lots of dance in them, whether they fit in the drama or not. We always broke out into dance. That was really fun. So, and the best part was our hospital. If you can imagine an Indian hospital, this was a poor area, and it was built in the 1930s, our particular hospital there, by a Scottish doctor trying to reach into Nepal. And so it was right on the border of Nepal. And it's that Kelly green paint and everything that my mother-in-law would say that was from the 1950s hospital from here, reminded her of nostalgia when she came to visit. But there was a platform kind of stage where they would have classes they had nursing school. And we used that for our dramas. And we found out early on that if we started practicing, like if we did a Christmas drama, we started practicing in September, just because we wanted to, and it was fun. So after school, we'd go through the hospital, and you have to picture this. You got to feel really hot, for one thing, still hot. But everybody there has to come and take care of the patient. So the whole family comes with the patient, and they're setting up little like tent cities with their little cooking stoves in all the hallways and the courtyard. And so we're walking all around them. And so we go into this auditorium place and we practice, but people would come in and watch us. Every practice we had an audience. So that was a really fun thing for us. I don't know. It was just anyway. Yeah.
Gretchen online doesn't have a question, but she just wants to say, what an incredible journey.
Oh, I feel very blessed. I mean, amazingly blessed. Thank you. Yeah.
Have you been back over, or do you plan on visiting again?
We had this grand plan of 6 months there, 6 months here. 2019, we went back, right? Yeah, I think it was 2018. We went back over, and it was amazing. We got to visit all the different projects. 2020 hit.
Right.
So there we are, and we haven't been back since then. It really has not. It's opened a lot slower than here, so it's been a long, yeah. So we haven't been back. I mean, he could move back there in an instant. I kind of nest, and I'm kind of nested here now, but I'm not totally closed. I think we might take some trips back. He's talking November. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
You know, I really enjoyed hearing your story within the context of our youth art show opening and the connections that you've made through community through art. I'm curious, have you sought out that experience locally within the state? Because there are certainly communities that struggle with access to art as well.
I feel that is a good train of thought to think through. I feel like I'm still getting my feet on the ground here for some reason. It's taken me a long time to fit back in, but I kind of have learned I hope I've learned a lesson. Maybe from my story, I haven't learned a lesson, but when doors open, I'm trying to be brave and take steps forward. So we'll see if things open up that way. And yeah.
I think you've been very brave.
Thank you.
Children at 27 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Thank you. I wouldn't change anything. It wasn't easy, but I wouldn't change it. I think your mind, when you can go overseas, I mean, vacations are great, but if you could go overseas and stay for a bit, you get to know people in a whole different way. And it really opens your mind up. Cultures and the beauty of other cultures. And some things I have a story. We're sitting at our Indian hospital. Well, they were really great. We were the only Westerners there for quite a bit of the time that we were at the first hospital. And when we came in, the first thing they did, and I know they're so poor, but they went out and bought a fork and a spoon for each one of us because they eat with their hands. But we kind of like, well, we want to eat with our hands too, but they really wanted to honor us with that. But the first time I remember sitting there, we're eating chicken biryani, which was a really expensive meal for them to prepare for us. And it was you feel very honored, but you feel like, oh man, you really change people's lives when you enter into their zone and they're trying to honor you and they're spending their whole week's wages on your food. But we're putting the fork in our mouth, and imagine all the Indian teachers that I worked with, they're just sitting there staring at me. And one of them, Jyoti, she goes, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, just wondering how many mouths that fork has been in. Now, doesn't that give you a different perspective? Because they are in control of their hands, and it's easy for us to say, have a different opinion. And I thought that was, yeah. Anyway.
So Sharon, what's up next?
I'm just continuing on. I just got a project out from Southeast Asia, and I'm doing little illustrations for a curriculum it's a drug prevention curriculum, but really it's all about building up families, because if you build up families, that's how you prevent drugs. You can give education to kids. If you can build up their families and keep families together, that's how you prevent. And so I'm working on, that's going to be a long project. It's just little pen and ink illustrations, but there's a lot of them. So that's what I'm currently doing. I'm just sort of taking it as it comes to me right now. So yeah, and I'm hoping to travel all around this area a lot more and take, my family makes fun of me because I had 27,000 photos on my phone or something. Unorganized photos. So I'm kind of in the doghouse about that one, but anyway, that's, yeah.
Are there any other questions? All right, well, I'm making my way around so I can talk to our virtual folks too. Sorry, I forgot to change the lights, but just a big thank you, Sharon, for
You're
sharing
welcome.
your story.
Thank you.
It was really beautiful and really inspirational. And again, the unexpected, well, I should have expected it, but connections to what's going on in our galleries is really inspirational and exciting to think of the work that we do when we share our art with others. So really grateful for you for sharing your story and your work with us.
Especially when you can give kids art, let them draw, let them create. Yeah,
just that story of giving that sketchbook and just being able to hang on to that and have that special space to share your ideas. I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful to all of you for joining us here in person and online. Coffee at 10 is back, but Crooked Tree Art Center is closed next week for spring break. So our remaining series will begin that following Wednesday. That's April 6th. We will have Amy Voss Dillinger from Kendall College of Art and Design here to talk about her work at that level of art education. She'll also be here during our youth art show, which will be announced a couple weeks after that. And following Amy Voss Dillinger, we have a panel from North Central Michigan College. So the focus in the next few weeks will really be on art education and how we build community through that. So hopefully you'll join us either in person or online. There's more coffee and pastries, more work to review. We'll lift the shade so you can take a closer look and enjoy that work. Yes.
I just
heard you say Wednesday, so.
I just
are we
meant, no, I
continuing
just
Wednesday?
said the wrong thing.
Wednesday?
I want Thursdays.
Okay, so
Thursdays
Thursday.
at 10.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess my brain's going on spring break,
That's
but,
okay.
but yeah, Thursdays at 10, that'll hold steady through the spring and through the summer. Yeah. Any other questions before we close? Okay, great. So stick around and enjoy
Thank
some
you.
coffee.
Thank you.
And take a look at the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.